someone's request. And when Borderlands magazine started, 1992 says, one of the editors came to me and asked me if I would do something on, I guess on Chilean poetry. I don't remember actually what they asked me to do, but I wrote a piece called the Chile-Texas Connection, and in it I talk about poets like James Hoggart in Wichita Falls, who has translated Oscar Hahn, another Chilean poet, and also published by Host Publications. I talked about Ray Gonzalez of El Paso, who was very interested in Pablo Neruda and influenced by him. I talked about Charles Balin from Slayton, Texas, out by Lubbock, who had discovered Parra in Slayton, Texas. I don't know how he did that, but at any rate, I talk about their connections, and I translate a few things, excerpts from Parra, and they're short, so I thought I would read a few of those. One of them is the first thing that I ever attempted to translate with my, as I say, almost non-existent Spanish at the time. But he had a book called, what's it called? The title is the Cueca, which is a national dance of Chile. Forgotten what it's, what the title is, but it's something about Cueca. And so they're little short quatrains that have to do, they're supposed to be sort of like the tango, you know, would have a certain kind of song form. And this is just one little, it's a fairly long poem. This is just one little quatrain, which I like a lot. And I thought that my translation worked pretty well. It's very short. And Gloria Astudillo, to have no superior, dropped her long panties, undid her brassiere. I love my rhyme there. And here's another one. This is the typical one. Reading my poems puts me to sleep, and yet they were written with blood. The turtle never wasted so much time as when he took lessons from the eagle. I think in a fit of rage, thus passes the glory of the world, without pain, without glory, without any fuss, without even a miserable bologna sandwich. That's a typical Parra. But toward the end of the piece, I translated. This is probably the last thing I translated of his before I did this book for Host Publications. And this was the sort of a prologue to Parra's translation into Spanish of King Lear, which, you know, you might think is impossible, but he did an absolutely magnificent job. It is unbelievable. And I think there's a wonderful little prologue which shows how much he knew about Shakespeare. I mean, he fell in love with Hamlet. He got a scholarship to go to Oxford to study physics. He got over there, he discovered Shakespeare, and he didn't go to classes. And they called him in, and they told him, "You have not been coming to class, what are you doing?" He said, "I discovered Shakespeare." And he started talking to Shakespeare about him, and so they let him stay another year, and he just got into Shakespeare. There are those for and against, unconditional admirers and top-notch detractors. He's talking about attitudes toward King Lear, right? those who hate it and those who love it. Like Tolstoy, Gide, Bernard Shaw, these all dismissed King Lear, who declares good for nothing. Thomas Reimer says outright he prefers the neighing of a horse. Patience, while some consider it the poetic text most epithetic in all Western lit. Others decide to rub it off the map, accusing it of poetic injustice. Nahum Tate and Company Unlimited. If Romanticism hadn't interceded, no one today would know it exists. What you are hearing, ladies and gentlemen, is that weird stuff also happens in Europe. He's a monster of such magnitude, Charles Lamb warns us, that it makes it tough to fit him into the setting of the common stage. He's too big for any to direct. It's impossible to bring him off. Who has hit the nail on the head? Few. One or two, but nobody else. It's frightening to see the poor old tumble-down guy staggering from port to starboard in the grand wash of contradictory waves till he goes completely bonkers. Would any of you want to be in the skin of the one who plays his part? There's no greater challenge for an actor, no matter how terrific he may be. I don't know. The reliable public will tell us. Of course, that's ironic. In any case, pluck up your courage, you young ones, accustomed to tragedies that end happily. This one couldn't possibly turn out worse. In a world deprived of reason, poetry can't be anything other than the guilty conscience of the times. The rest is Greco-Roman literature. Thanks and have a good night. From here on, the director has the floor. Well, I went to visit Parra in his home a number of times. He had a home in Santiago, and that's where I first met him. And then he has a home on the beach in Las Cruces. I guess, Joe,
yeah.
You were not going to show any of that.
No, we decided just for the YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I videoed Parra in his home, and he was still talking about Shakespeare. I mean, and at one point in the video, I focus on the wall. There's a photograph of his grandson who accepted the Cervantes Award in Spain in Parra's place. When they asked Parra about, in Spain, when they asked the grandson, what did Parra say about the award? And he said, well, it should have been given to me in Las Cruces, which is his beach home. And so on the wall was a photograph of his grandson at that time. This was 1998, 16 years ago. And so he was talking about the grandson, and one day he was talking to him, and he called him Tololo. And he said, my name is not Tololo, it's Hamlet. And so in school, he wouldn't answer unless they called him Hamlet, because he heard Parra talking about Hamlet all the time in the house. And then some of his first words that the grandson said, he couldn't figure out what they were. And he kept saying, Duke, Duke, Duke. And later he discovered that he was talking about King Lear, the dukes. And what are the names of the two dukes that married the sisters? The Duke of York, or I don't know which ones. At any rate, I should. he was talking about King Lear because he heard Parra always talking about King Lear and about, you know, this Duke and that Duke, and then he put on a recording. I think it had some of the great English actors doing it, so it was a sound recording. And at one point, and it's Hamlet, and the line is something about with something we could sugar over the devil himself. And Father would say, sugar over the devil himself. You know, I mean, he knows the whole play. So I went to see him one time, and he met me, and you had to go through a window because they had some problem with the door. So you had to enter through this window, and he called it his anti-door. So when he meets me, I get out of the car, and he meets me. You are right, welcome, you know. And I was supposed to return, you know, what the next line was in Hamlet. I didn't know. You are most welcome to England. No, what is it? No, to Denmark. Sure, not England. You are most welcome to Denmark. And I don't know what some of you may know what the next line is. Anyway, that's the kind of mind that this guy has. I mean, it's just absolutely remarkable. And I saw him, I guess, 2011 or 12 maybe. It was the last time I saw him. Still just brilliant, you know, just incredible. Just one thing after another. So this is the kind of man that lived 100 years, and he was talking to a granddaughter, and he said, let me see if I can find that. Am I going on too long, Joe?
Give you another 10 minutes, so you do it.
Oh, okay, yeah, let me just read this a little bit from this, where you can hear.
I'm gonna give you the hook.